That is, first of all, so beautiful, so powerful. Like, oh my gosh, I want to cry.
I know. Every time I share this, I want to cry.
That's
It was so
amazing.
special that visitation was really something incredible.
Welcome to the Angelic Frequency Podcast. We are your hosts, Cristina Aroche.
And Luisa. And today we're talking about one of our favorite topics, Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, and generally all that divine feminine energy. We're sharing some of our experiences, and it's a very fun episode. There was a lot of channeling going on. I love when that happens. We have them directly on the line with us, speaking through you. So that was so fun.
Oh my gosh, so much fun. I wasn't expecting that, but of course, once you start asking the questions, and you always ask such great questions, the information just flows in. So that was so much fun. Let's dive in. Okay,
Okay.
where do we even want to start with
There's
this
so much to
episode?
unpack. Yeah, this is definitely one of my favorite topics, and we've even discussed it, offline a lot. And that's Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, and tying to that previous episode about divine feminine energy, but speaking specifically to these two kind of figures that are so important and prominent. I feel like when it comes to ascended masters, they really are so well known across the world. So I guess they are worshipped. I don't know, that's not the right word, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I
A
do.
lot of people go to them for counsel. And so anyway, it's just big divine feminine energies doing some work here on earth. So I think it's worth discussing.
Yeah, absolutely. And definitely, I feel like, especially with Mother Mary, like I feel like she's just a universal,
Yeah.
like, no matter what culture, religion, like any of that, it's like there's Mother Mary, or at the very least, this divine mother type
Yes.
of archetype, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I was raised Catholic, and we've talked about this too. So, and especially down in Latin America, you can't go anywhere, do anything and avoid Mother Mary. Like every other block, there's a church, there's an image, there's something related to her. We'll grow up just seeing her around. It is just such a part of our culture, and we just pray to Mother Mary all the time for everything and anything. In my particular case, my connection with Mother Mary goes a little bit deeper than that. So my mom had a really difficult pregnancy,
Hmm.
and around in her first trimester, like finishing her first trimester, essentially she had to lay down for the rest of the pregnancy. Otherwise
Wow.
I was not gonna make it. So at one point the doctors tell her, you know what, this is as far as science goes, so if you believe in anything, just hold on to that, because we
Wow.
just don't have nothing more to offer you. And so anyway, she did. And so she offered me to Mother Mary, and that essentially I was her daughter. If I was meant to be born and come into this world, I was hers. So
Wow.
when I was born, my mother has always told me how she's your mother. You need to talk to her. And again, tingly.
Yeah, I just got chills all over my body when you were
Uh,
saying that.
So I'm her daughter, and so I should really lean on her in life, generally speaking. But to be realistic, I didn't for the longest time. I was more
Mhm.
drawn to Jesus and
Mhm.
that figure and that master, and it was more relatable to me for some reason. I had more of a connection there. And only a few years ago, when I was about to become a mother, actually, I had a visitation, and then I've had a few others after, from Mother Mary in a dream. And that absolutely shifted my whole relationship with her, in such a deep, meaningful way. And then, yes, after becoming a mother, it just really changed. I don't know for you if that had like any
Yeah. Yeah.
consequence there, and it shifted your relationship with Mother Mary.
That is, first of all, so beautiful, so powerful. Like, oh my gosh, I want to cry.
I know. Every time I share this, I want to cry.
That's
It was so
amazing.
special that visitation was really something incredible, and she allowed me to see different facets and different aspects. So when I first saw her, she was like a priestess, and her dress was just absolutely beautiful, and she had almost like this, that hat the Pope wears, like a
Oh,
big,
yeah.
that she was wearing something like that, very regal, like the
Mm.
Queen of Angels. She presented herself
Mhm.
in her most, regal form. And then as the dream progressed, she showed me different aspects, and it became simpler and simpler and simpler until at the end of the dream, I remember she had a very simple red tunic, and she was standing beside me, and anyway, we were having a lovely conversation. But yeah, she shared with me that she can be anything and everything she
Right.
is to us in life, right? But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's just her. It's just
That's
another woman. It's just another mother, and that was beautiful.
That is so beautiful. That's incredible. And I feel like with that, that's such an important message from her is this like, don't put me on a pedestal. Don't put me up here on this thing. It's like I'm here with you. And I feel like that's been a consistent kind of
Yeah,
energy and message from her, and also just divine feminine beings as a whole. I feel like, just this kind of on the same level, not
yeah,
putting them on a pedestal. But that is so incredibly like heartwarming and just so amazing to have that, to have had that experience, and also to see how that has shifted your perspective just kind of moving forward, and just kind of like how you interact with her and how you move through life and things like that. For me, my experience with Mother Mary, so I also grew up kind of going to a Catholic school, but not very
mhm,
talking about Catholicism or religion or anything like that in the home, like throughout my upbringing and childhood and young adulthood. And then the first time that I remember her coming in a way that really surprised me, it actually wasn't for me. It was when I was doing a channeling for someone else.
mhm,
And, that was when I was in the beginning stages of my business and of my work. So it must have been sometime in 2017, I think, when this happened. But I was, just doing a reading, and at that point, I was, used to like angels are coming in, archangel this, archangel that, this is who's
mhm,
coming forward. And then I felt this other presence that came through.
mhm.
And I was like, it like took me a second. I was like, wait, that's not any of the archangels. But then immediately it was just this knowing, like, it's Mother Mary. Like Mother Mary is here. And I remember being like, oh my gosh, like Mother Mary is coming forward for you. This is
It sounds surreal. Are you
crazy.
talking to me?
Yeah, exactly. Like, whoa. And I can't remember at all what the message was, what the context even was. Like, I don't remember any of that. I just remember how I was that instance of being surprised, like, wait a second, like Mother Mary showing up? It's not angels anymore. Like we're talking about her. And then just this immense, and then I also remember this immense feeling of love that she
Okay.
brought. Like it was just so, I feel like there's no words to describe the immensity of the love that she brings and that nurturing energy, like that divine love. And so that, I feel like I'll never forget that moment. For some reason, that moment sticks in my mind,
Yeah.
and and then since then, I've felt her coming through here and there. I will say it hasn't been a consistent thing. And then part of me too also wonders, actually, this just coming up as we're talking, is I wonder if it's about like the same how I teach about angels, like we have to be the ones who call on them and reach out and ask for their
Right.
guidance and support. Is it the same thing with, well, I need to be the one who is reaching out to Mother Mary and
Right.
asking her for her to come in and things
Uh-huh.
like that, which, is kind of like a curiosity thing where she's not necessarily been coming forward a lot, but every once in a while. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And for me, it's a practice of yeah, call on her more often, you
And
know?
that was the thing for me for the longest time, because it was like, yeah, she's your mother, and I was like, well, yeah, but what do I do with that? Like, what
Yeah,
does this mean in a practical sense, right? And how do I manage that relationship? How do I
right.
get closer to her? So yeah, it really, I think there was a disconnect there. And you're
Mhm.
right, like any other relationship in life or with the divine, is just, it takes work. You actually have to open up your
Yeah.
heart, create a connection, be consistent, sit down, call on her, call on that energy. I'm really curious, because I love to find out how your brain operates. Um, when you say she comes through, because this happened in one of our sessions, even that Mother Mary
Mhm.
came through, and Mary
Mhm.
Magdalene. You even introduced me to Divine Sophia. I was really not
Yeah.
familiar even with that energy. How does that look or feel, or do you listen? It's
Yeah.
voice, like, what happens?
Yeah. I'll try to explain what's going on in my brain, and honestly, half the time I'm always like, "I wish I could just put you in my brain right now so you could see what I'm seeing," because sometimes I have a hard time describing it. And so in general, when I'm connecting with energies, when they're stepping forward, the first immediate thing for me, how it shows up is that I see their energy in my mind's eye. And so it doesn't feel like they're physically in front of me. I just feel them. I don't know how to describe it. Like I just feel them in my mind kind of a thing.
Hmm.
And I feel it as their energy. And to me, their energy, I would say probably 90% of the time, it really just looks like a ball of light or a ball of energy. So when I'm talking about the archangels, and let's say I'm like Archangel Raphael stepping forward, I see his green, I just see this green energy that's coming through. And
Okay.
then it feels like it's paired with my claircognizance of just a knowing that, oh, that's Archangel Raphael. And then of course at this point in my journey, I have now developed the experience that I know that it's
Right.
him because I recognize it so well. So when Mother Mary came through, the way that she came through, the way that I saw her, it was this really beautiful, like pinkish energy. That's how I saw her, and like this very light pink energy.
Okay.
And it was the same thing. I didn't actually really see her as like a person. I didn't really see like a face or hair or anything like that. To me, it just came through as a light,
Mm.
pinkish energy, and that same knowing of, oh, that's Mother Mary. And so that's how she's consistently showed up for me,
Okay.
whether it's in sessions or whether it's been like for me personally. It has always been that pink-ish light paired with this knowing. And I don't know, now that I'm describing it, I'm like, how do I know that? I don't know. I don't know how I know, which is like the key thing about claircognizance is like you don't know how you know, you just know. I feel like maybe it's like how, like what's emitted in the frequency or whatever. There's just this connection that in my heart I just know that that's who that is, and it's been consistently like that throughout
Okay.
my whole journey since I've been connecting with her.
That's always fascinating to me to see that. And it's good to see how it looks like, how it looks like for you. You know,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
for me it's always been dreams.
Mhm.
For you it's been different, and you've seen energy, but whatever that means for you is just, it's going to be so personal and so different person to person.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's the key thing with in general, I think in developing our spiritual connection with these divine beings, it's trusting in how it's showing up for you because it's not necessarily going to be the same as it is for me, as it is for you, as it is for anyone else, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's the hardest part that people have trouble with is it's kind of like, well, if there's no exact like this is how it's going to look
Right.
every single time, you know,
Yeah.
or across the board, meaning for everybody, then how do I know that that's what it is? And you know,
Mhm.
and that I think that's part of the process of really surrendering and trusting and developing that deeper connection, you know?
Absolutely. Okay, and now, because I like to understand how things work.
Yeah, you do. I love that. I love your brain. Asking those questions.
So just to understand the structure of it all. So we have Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene, and all these energies are divine feminine energy, but they kind of, over my understanding at this point, is that they work together. So they're
Mhm.
organized. There's a system there. So they're part of, and you'll tell me, but they're part of a council, and then that council is part of, the ascended masters collective. I don't know how to call it. And then, sort of, how are they kind of organized, and how do they work together?
Yeah, that's a really great question, which I also feel like I'm learning as I'm going too. Like
Yeah.
that's just one of those things. But I also really love when you ask questions because even though I might personally be like, I'm learning, it's like I feel like when you're asking me, they're providing me with answers too. So I'm kind of like half channeling, half telling you what I think. But I do see it exactly as that. Like when you were describing that, it almost feels like there's these, like, I want to call it like the orders, or like these almost like if you think about it as bloodlines, being where there's this energy or a connection or whatever the thing is that's being passed down. And then there's these orders or like collectives or councils, like you
Mhm.
said. Not quite sure if it's interchangeable or maybe there is a distinction between those. Maybe we'll find that out later.
Oh, yeah.
But, but and so it feels like with every order, I'm just going to call it order because that's what I keep hearing as I'm talking to you. So we'll call it
Yeah.
order. Every order has a purpose. Every order has something that they are here to, it almost feels like master or really get to be kind of like very connected in it to then be the example for humanity. So it kind of feels like, if you think of the order with, Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene and like that lineage, that is the divine feminine and the divine mother. Like it feels like that's the energy that they bring forward.
Mhm.
Whereas other ones might be more related to like compassion or forgiveness or that kind of a thing. Others might be more related to understanding sacred knowledge, sacred wisdom, sacred geometry comes through as well. So I feel like when you think of the realm of spiritual knowledge and understanding and truths, it almost feels like it's divided into these categories, so to speak. And then the orders, which are then made up of these different divine beings, they kind of come through as examples and teachers of whatever that teaching is, big in
Yeah.
big quotations,
Yeah.
that just came through right now. I don't know, I never actually thought about it but in that way, but
Yeah.
that's how it came through. So that's very interesting.
So then that's what it is. That's
That's what
amazing.
it
And the
is.
more we learn, the more it's fascinating, because, of course, since we've been uh, doing this work, and just learning and trying to understand this a lot more, I've stumbled upon all sorts of things, and especially exploring the divine feminine. So the divine Sophia,
Yeah.
the Rose Code, the Magdalenes, all these things. What I find fascinating about this, specifically these two women, is thinking about their context, and how hard
Mm,
it must have been to be a woman to begin with, at that
yeah.
time. That
Yeah.
alone was a big hurdle. And then if you're preparing yourself to bring forth this soul and this divine teacher that was coming through, what they must have been equipped with to do that, so they themselves must have been so gifted. And we don't learn
Um,
about that through, the Bible or traditional books like that, but they must have been incredibly powerful channels, and
yeah.
mediums, and all the things that you need to equip that other soul that is coming through to understand their own divinity, and just to provide that spiritual foundation.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. As you say that, what I feel or see is and maybe, I don't know, as I'm thinking about this, I feel like there's maybe even some tie to science, like how it works, but then there's also like beyond that. But Because when I think of it, on a, let's just say on a basic science level, obviously if you're carrying a child, like they're inheriting your DNA. But then if you think about on an energetic level, what are they
Right.
inheriting from you energetically? And
Right.
so if that child is meant to be, well, in the case of Jesus, meant to be the Messiah and meant to have that, carry that impact on humanity, then you're right, like she would have had to hold a certain frequency and energy and connection to be able to pass that on.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Which
totally.
is so interesting to think about that. And the thing that I also think about is how are they chosen? Like, how do you choose that?
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, she must have been, I mean, her soul must have been preparing forever to before herself to do that
Right.
here on earth. And then the orchestration and the behind the scenes to prepare that moment in time, and
Yeah.
all the characters, as I call it, all the characters that came together to be embodied at one time in one place for that whole
Yes.
story to unravel like it did. So yeah, it must have been a very powerful moment in time of so many incredible
Yes.
beings
Yes.
embodied at once in one place doing
Yes. Yes. So I want to share what's coming through. I don't know. I'm getting these visions in this information. I don't
that.
know. We're just gonna get into it. What When you said that, like it does feel like if you think about back, okay, so what is it, 2,000 years ago or
Mhm.
slightly more than 2,000 years ago, it almost feels like this huge, I don't know what words to use to describe it. What I'm seeing is it's almost like the planet Earth, and then there's this huge stream of light coming in. Like almost that period of time was chosen to have this influx of divine energy to come in to
Mhm.
really, and maybe this is part of the mystery, like whether it was to shake things up or to just increase the consciousness, or what the reason behind it. I feel like that's the mystery. We don't know why
Mhm.
that time period. We don't know why the earth specifically was ready for it or whatever, but it felt like that was the chosen time for this influx of energy. And
Mhm.
then since then, I see it as this very slow, like if you think of, imagine the earth and there's this influx of energy and it
Mhm.
comes in and kind of like imagine it sinking into the earth. And then slowly over time, over the 2000 plus years, it almost feels like that light slowly beginning to come to the surface, for lack of a better way of explaining it, or coming into a greater consciousness. Like it's almost like it came in, but then it was still hidden and it was still a mystery and it was still very much something that so many people feared. And the reason why, that knowledge wasn't so common, or, if you think about the witch trials and all that, like that whole experience, that in history, we don't have to go into all those details, but like that whole thing of how the sacred knowledge was hidden and it was not so prominent, but yet now we're moving through a time period that I feel like this energy is
Yeah.
actually beginning to wake up and awaken and come to light. And I don't know whether it's because it had to, I mean, who knows? The divine has its reasons, but like whatever it had to do to be more hidden in order to be able to come out now. And so the other thing that was coming through before is it feels like as each of us are awakening to our own spiritual truths and journeys and just coming into closer connection with the divine and coming into closer connection with that love and that, what some people call Christ consciousness,
Yeah.
as we come into closer connection with that, it feels like all of us are holding, like I almost see it like this light being lit up within each and every single one of us within our heart space. This light is being turned on
Mhm.
slowly but surely within each of us. And that is the rise of this light that came into earth. Almost think of it like sinking down into the earth and slowly over time has been rising up. And now we are finally kind of able and having access, whether it's because we had to wait for the development of human consciousness to reach a
Mhm.
certain level to be able to hold that frequency and that light, which I think is actually part of what it is, as I said that. But yeah, I don't know. That's just what came through. I don't know if
Amazing.
that made any sense at all, but I just
No,
wanted to share that.
no, it totally did. It totally did. And I think, yeah, I mean, for that energy to add for yeah, we needed a time for the message to spread at a time where communication channels were not established.
Right.
We
Yeah.
didn't have technology like we do today. So of course it took centuries for that to spread across the globe and for us to become familiar with that message slash energy. And going back to them and what they were going through at that time, like if you think about it, I mean, you today are a very powerful channel and you go around, spreading the message of and angels are here, they're with us, they communicate with us. But if you think about Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene, I mean, they were doing that too. They were seeing angels, they were
Right.
channeling their
Yeah.
messages, they were talking to them all the time. People were hearing the voice of God and they were doing things. So if you and seeing burning bushes and things,
Right.
which was probably just energy, and they're like, "Oh, that's on fire," and they
Yeah.
would just, um,
I know. It's so funny actually thinking about that now. Like, oh yeah, probably they were just seeing that in their mind's eye. Like,
exactly, we're just seeing a big bright energy right now. But anyway, people were just doing that as part of the day to day life, and it was not even in question. Of course, the kind of energy that came through and who the message was actually from, we were not very sure. And thinking back, it might have been a mix of different things. But the connection with the angels is what I wanted to bring up as an example of what a powerful channel she was, and two, do we know why, or that's the why she's called or referred to as the Queen of Angels?
yes, I feel like that's exactly why.
Okay.
Because it feels like she was maybe the first one. I mean, that's kind of where I feel that, or maybe one of the first ones that really brought through their energy into a more tangible form, for lack of a better way of explaining it. One of the things that I always teach on is how, as each of us are awakening and developing our own channel and connection, things like that is what is needed in order for the angelic energy and frequency to really have an impact in the world, because they are in 5D or whatever form, like in ethereal form, and we are in the physical. So we are like the bridge. Through us, they are able to actually have a more tangible effect, because it's through us that they work through us, if you think about it, like, because they're bringing down a message to a person, and then that person is able to take the action for that divine will to occur. You know what
Okay.
I mean? So I
Okay.
feel like that's also where, if you've ever heard the analogy of, like, we're kind of like chess pieces or whatever, and like kind of like the divine is moving us, like over here, over there, like we're just kind of moving with what the divine will is. And I mean, if we choose it, we still have our free will, but if we choose to follow what the divine will is, and it feels like through the awakening of humanity, that is a more concrete or more tangible way that their guidance, their energy, their love can be experienced on earth,
Okay.
And so it feels like she was the first bridge, like she was that first, like, powerful channel that was actually teaching about that, and telling people about that and letting them know that they have this connection.
Okay. That's amazing. I mean, if you think about it, of course, Jesus, with his main character energy, was, doing just bringing through a very important message about, your connection with the divine and life after
Yeah.
death and all of that. But she, if you think about it like that, then she was doing this other job, of course, becoming kind of the mother figure for humanity, and but also bringing through her own message about
Yeah.
the angelic realm and that connection that we have with the divine through these other beings.
Yes. 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 Exactly. Exactly. Which
But
is really interesting too, because I feel like, and I don't know, maybe it's just my experience. You can tell me what yours has been, but just in general, looking out at what's available in terms of like literature and books and things
Mhm.
like that, it feels like you said Jesus main character energy, like he's very prominent,
Yeah,
and obviously for good reason, but it only feels, at least for me, that it's only been in recent years that I've noticed, first of all, that there's more
yeah.
and more books being published about Mary Magdalene, about Mother Mary, about that energy. That, I don't know, maybe it's just that information just wasn't accessible before, and so people are beginning to have these connections, and then they're writing books about it. But it's just been really interesting to dive into the books that are written out there about Mother Mary, about Mary Magdalene, and just understanding their side of the
Mhm.
story more deeply, you know?
Yeah. I mean, of course, yes. And it was just, again, very complex time back then. Wasn't great for women. So of course it was not going to translate like that on any of the literature of the time, because culturally women
Right.
had a different role in society. So it was not,
Yeah.
so even if they were an incredible priestess, and even if they were relevant,
Yeah.
apostles, and part of that group, and they were not going to be
Mm.
reflected like that in a
Mhm.
text like the Bible, or the account. So yeah, I think it's only recently where, as a society, we've evolved enough that women are perceived differently, our role in society is changing, and so now that gets to come through and
Right.
come to light. By the way, just a fun fact that I learned recently, now that you talk about books and literature. So Mary, the name Mary, means female teacher or female rabbi or female
Mm.
priestess,
Okay.
right? So even in her name, she was like a
Yeah.
teacher.
That's amazing.
That's really interesting. And then Magdalene is of the high, of the tower, of the high tower, something like that. So it's
Oh,
like the teacher of
of like,
the above, the high.
oh
So anyway,
yeah.
it's super
That's so
interesting when you even
cool.
look at the name and the meaning of the name and what that
Yeah.
carried, because it was such a popular name
Mhm. Yeah, that's
back then.
true.
And all those figures are Marys. I think there's three Marys actually: Mary Magdalene, Mother Mary, and
Uh-huh.
there's a third Mary I'm
Hmm.
forgetting, which I think is the person we know today as Salome, I think was actually called Mary something. And now
Oh, okay.
there were three. They
Okay.
were really relevant in that whole
Yeah.
story. But anyway, now moving on a little bit to the Magdalens. I've also
Yes.
been learning about them more and more. You've also brought that to my attention a few times. I was very curious to explore the Magdalens and that council, or that order is what we're going with, right?
Yes, I guess so. Yeah, that's what they want to the order, I guess. Yeah.
The order and the work that they do. So Mother Mary part of the Magdalens? I guess is the first part of my question.
Yes, is what I heard. So yes. Yes.
Great. And what are they doing? What are they about? What is this order? Is there anything that comes through for you?
Yeah, let's tune in and see, because if you ask me, Christina, I don't know. But if we ask them, they'll tell us what they're showing me in terms of like what.
What's the mission? I guess is my question.
Yeah, and it feels like it is like the first thing that they're showing me is it is definitely connected to this energy of understanding that a huge part of their role, like I keep seeing like this passing down. Like it's very important to understand that in who we are, we're passing something down to the next generation. So it feels like a very much this like, what are you passing down? And like starting from there in that
Mm.
question of not even so much of, what am I doing in this lifetime, or what is the role here, but it's this, what energy are we passing down through the generations? And what I see that being is it's connected to the experience of love, essentially, is what it feels like. It's this experience of love, of divine love, and within the context of this planet. Like, because if you think of it on a spiritual level, like if when you're in the spiritual realms, you're already in that
Love.
space,
Yeah.
in that love. So
Mhm.
it's more so a connection of bringing that into a more physical form on this experience of being on earth, specifically as humans, you
Mhm.
know, and experiencing it through the more tangible forms where we have relationships with our loved ones, for example, and with each other, and experiencing the divine consciousness in this way where, I don't know if you want to call it duality, if that's the right word, but it just feels like this, almost like a contrast in the sense of, we're here as physical beings. Like I am me, you are you. We have this
Mhm.
separation, but then can we also exist in a way where we understand that we're not actually separated, that you and I are actually, and all of us are connected, because there's this one consciousness that exists. So it feels like at this moment right now, I have to pause and like think about it and be like, yeah, okay, we're all connected like this one consciousness. But
Yeah.
in the way that I'm operating in my everyday life, I'm still mainly operating as like, I'm my own individual being. I am
Mhm.
Cristina. Like, that's you, and that's you, and that's you. And it's because we're so much in the 3D. So it feels like this experience of living in a way where it's less about that separation. Like, yes, you're aware of this physical separation, but you're more in the energy of connectedness with that one consciousness. You know what
Okay.
I mean?
I think so. But yeah, I do think I get what you mean. And then in working with Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, or the Order,
Yeah.
you are embodying that divine energy and that love and bringing that through in your day to day life.
And yes, and it also feels like it connects to that divine feminine essence and energy, which we spoke about in the previous episode, but also just in general, kind of like that divine feminine. Like, what does the expression of the divine feminine represent, or how does it look, or how is it expressed in our everyday life as human beings, you know?
Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. So, yeah. I'm trying to see if there's anything else that they want to that they want to share regarding that.
The practice, how do we do that?
That's a good question.
Like in a practical sense,
How
like
do
in
we do that? No, I'm just kidding.
in a practical sense, how do we connect, and
How
what
do
are
we
things
do
that
it?
we can do to connect with them and embody that energy?
Yeah. The first thing that popped up, again, this is just what I'm seeing, what they're showing me. I actually feel like having a practice where you're lighting a candle, like specifically the connection to a candle, where
Okay.
instead of just simply, I'm going to go sit and meditate, or I'm going to journal, it's like light a candle first before you do that.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, so
Why?
why is that? Yeah, like why? What's up with the candle? And there's just something about that connection to the flame, like the
Fire.
energy of the
Yeah.
flame, the fire. It just feels like it's a symbolic way, like a physical symbolic representation of that energy, and also the intention. I feel like when you're doing something like that, where it's just like something simple, like I'm gonna light the candle, I'm gonna create the little flame, it it's the intention behind it. Like, I'm doing this for you, and it almost feels like an energy of like a commitment, or a devotion, like a dedication to them, or something like that, where it feels like I'm lighting this candle and then calling on Mother Mary, calling on Mother Mary Magdalene. Please surround me with your truth, with your love, with your essence, with your presence, and help me to experience or feel what I meant to feel today. And
Mhm.
that's the biggest thing too that I feel them saying, is that it's about the intention of you feeling their presence, because once that clicks, once it's just like, okay, I felt their presence and they're here, then it's almost like you go back to your day-to-day, whatever you do, like driving, go to work, kids, whatever it is, but you're now operating from this different frequency or from this different
Mhm.
energy. So they keep emphasizing that it's not about, changing what you're doing necessarily. It's about what energy are you approaching it from? Like what frequency are you showing up in?
Okay.
And so and as we do that, as we show up to normal everyday mundane things, but from this different frequency and energy, that is how the shifts start to happen, and that's how you start to embody more of that divine feminine energy,
Hmm.
or just in general that frequency of divine love. Like that's how it starts to make its way in a more tangible form,
Okay.
you know.
That's amazing. I can definitely feel the presence. I can barely see the screen in front of me. That's what's happening with me. So I'm very much connected now. I'm getting surrender, the word surrender. Is
Yes.
there something to, because when I think of a ritual or something that I personally do to connect, it could look like lighting a candle or not. I will light it from now on. But a little prayer. But there's always that, just act through me, speak through me,
Yes.
and let that energy, like letting that energy come in, and surrendering to
Yeah.
their will and whatever that looks like for me in a day. They see beyond what I could possibly imagine. So it's like, let them take the wheel.
Yeah.
You're driving. You tell
Yeah.
me what to do, and surrender to
Yeah.
allow that to happen.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's so huge, especially, I don't know about you, but I like when things don't go the way that I thought they would or expected or whatever, I tend to like go into like this trying to control, trying to like figure it out. Like, okay, go, 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 do, whatever. And so it's been very much a prominent thing for me right now in my journey of
Hmm.
really leaning into this surrender.
Hmm.
And I've found that when, like, exactly how you described it, the surrender of what is your will, like act through me however you would, wherever you want me to be, whatever you want me to do, say, like, I'm showing up for that. Just guide me, just show me what it is. And I found that when I do that, that the way that I view the situation feels so much less stressful, and it feels so much
Hmm.
less like it's giving me anxiety or fear or whatever. Like it just feels like everything gets toned down because
Yeah.
I'm surrendered. You know what I mean?
Yes, it absolutely changes your perspective, whatever it is that's happening in your life, when you're like, okay, there's a bigger plan. They know what they're doing. I don't have to figure it out. They're doing that for me,
Yeah.
and you're going to be okay. No one wants a better outcome for you than them. No one loves
Yeah.
you more than
Yeah.
them. So just let them do their job, and just my job is to surrender. So surrendering to Mother Mary's love. That's the
Yeah. Yeah.
that's the
Exactly.
mission.
That is the mission.
It's very interesting, and how you're part of something larger than yourself, larger than you know or could imagine,
Right.
and being part of that collective energy that is doing a little something, like you and me talking every week about
Mhm.
spirituality and things, is just a little something that brings some hope
Yes.
or some light for someone, or sparks something out there. So that transmission and how important it is. But yeah, back to the book. Wow. And
So wild.
so
So
wild,
amazing.
so amazing. Yeah, the more curious, and goes back to the connection aspect that we were talking about. When you start leaning into her energy, calling on her, they'll create the circumstances, they'll bring the right book at the right time, the right person, the right
Right.
connection, and then they'll give you what you need. If you're curious and you want it,
Yes.
they'll do it for you, and they'll bring it for you. So that, I think, it goes back to that connection and calling on whatever you want. In
Right.
this case, Mother Mary, or Mary Magdalene, or the Magdalenes, or Divine Sophia. And just establishing that connection and how powerful that is, and how
Mm-hmm.
everything, then you'll start to see them everywhere. And then you'll start finding all the books and all the things that
Right.
speak to that theme
Yes.
when your soul is kind of like calling
Yeah.
for them. So, yeah, really interesting. By the way, and I don't know if there's a connection here or not, but because I've been kind of focusing on this topic for the last few weeks, I keep seeing 111,
Me
ten,
too.
10, 111, 111, but I woke up at
Oh my God.
11 in the, like, last night, and then at 2:22. So anyway, there's something like
Whoa.
they're talking to me, but the ones are very prominent. Is
That's
there
so
a connection
cool.
with that divine feminine energy in terms of numbers, just as you would with angels, where they talk to you
Right.
through numbers? I'm
Yeah.
wondering if that divine feminine energy speaks through numbers, and if that number is one, because that's all I see.
Yeah. Yeah. I've never, before this conversation, I've not thought about it in that way before, but I definitely feel like as you're saying that, the answer that feels like it's coming through is a yes, like that they can communicate with us. That essentially, like, the numbers sequences isn't necessarily just angels, like that it is them communicating as well.
Hmm.
And with the ones, it feels like a connection of like you're following the right path. And it feels like a connection with almost like the breadcrumbs. It feels like,
Hmm.
they're leaving you the breadcrumbs. You're reading this book, you're reading that book, having these conversations, diving into this and that. And it feels like, yes, follow this path, almost like a confirmation. Keep following this path of
Okay.
what you're exploring specifically, for you personally, in terms of what you're diving into, in
Okay.
what you're learning and digesting and all those things, you know?
That's amazing. Okay, it makes sense because it's honestly, it's
Yeah.
like at
I've been
this
seeing
point.
it too. So I'm going to take that
Really?
as a message for me too, because I've
Okay,
been
great.
seeing 1111, the
10, 10,
111.
1, 1.
Yeah, like that has been consistent for me too recently. So
Okay, good.
I'll take
So I
that
guess
message.
we're connected.
That's amazing.
That's great. Yeah, they have the communication channels, and I guess that's another interesting topic to dive into in some other episode. The ways that they'll use to connect with us, whether it's dreams or numbers or signs, symbols, and they really work hard to get our
Yeah.
attention.
Yeah.
We're not hearing voices anymore like in the times of the Bible. Well, at least not I'm not. You probably are, but
Sometimes, yeah.
sometimes. So you do see burning bushes somewhere sometimes,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, they'll do anything and everything to kind of tune in and try and connect with us somehow. So that's, I guess, a
Yeah.
whole other conversation, but super interesting to know that that divine feminine energy also uses that as a
Yeah. Yeah.
communication.
Definitely. Definitely. And the biggest thing that I feel, I'll just share this because I feel this energy coming in as you're sharing that. And they're like the deepest connection is always in within our heart, in the sense of like the feeling. I
Mhm.
feel like this divine feminine and Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, like they're really encouraging us to come into the knowing of their presence through the feeling in our heart, and that's where I feel like that the practice of, heart healing, heart opening, like heart chakra connection, all that is so powerful and sacred and connected to this conversation, is
Mhm.
because as we are open ourselves in that way, then we are more open, not just to their presence, which I feel like, I mean, anyone listening is probably like, I welcome their presence. Like, yes, please. Like, I need that Mother Mary nurturing, whatever. But more than that, it feels like it opens us up to whatever the divine truth and divine will is that they want us to know or experience or embody
Mhm.
as well. Like it feels like it's a way in which we are able to more, I don't know what the word is, like more greatly dissolve the ego to be able to be more surrendered into what that divine will is. Because we have to remember, I think that as humans, obviously we have our egos, and obviously the egos wanting to control, wanting to know everything, wanting to like like have that side of us, which we will always have as humans. But I do feel like we're able to quiet that voice the more that we're open into in our hearts, and the more that we're open and willing to receive what the divine truth and divine will is for us, and then surrender to it,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
That's the hardest part, but yeah, and I don't know how it is for you, but at least for me, it does feel like a very strong, like the duality, right? You feel like, oh, this is so human. You do feel when you're like, it's like you're awake or you're sleepwalking, it feels like. So
Yeah.
you're in autopilot, or you're
Yeah.
actually connected in a way,
Yeah.
and aware and connected to the divine. You just do things differently, you just show up differently, you just,
Hmm.
it's very different. And then when you're in your human, is just like, oh wow, I've been sleepwalking for a long time. This feels so different and great when you're connected. So there's
Yeah.
a contrast, and I do how I
Totally.
show up as a mother, as a partner, at
Yeah.
work, like you do when you show up in life connected and surrendered. It does create such a different environment around you, and people feel it,
Yeah. Yeah.
and things start to happen also so fast. So everything
Yes.
is just so quickly when you let it happen and you stop
Yes.
controlling, and you're just like, yeah, this is for the highest good. So I trust that this is
Yeah.
the way now. Things will just accelerate.
Hmm.
Um, like with our connect, like things just start happening
Yeah.
so
Totally.
quickly, and you just let them do their job, and you're not in the way, and you're not holding them back.
Yeah,
uh,
exactly.
the life starts to just work differently. It's also amazing to see it. We're
Yeah.
just so stubborn and so human, so
Yeah,
it's too hard.
exactly. Exactly. Yep. And I think just I definitely feel like that's just acknowledging that it's just part of the process, and they know it too, like they know that we'll be stubborn sometimes. They know that they'll
Yeah,
need to repeat things a million times to us sometimes, or send us a sign, or
I know.
whatever the case is. But I'm glad that at least they're very compassionate and understanding.
I know. I hope so. But every time I'm like, oh wow, I haven't said hi to my guardian angels like in a few
Mm,
days. I'm like, I'm so sorry, I've been ignoring you for
yeah.
completely. I was just so
Yeah.
um, distracted with life, and same with Mother Mary. Is like, oh, I haven't like talked to you in a while, and it's like, I'm so
Right.
sorry, I have forgotten. I'm just
Yeah.
distracted. But yeah, definitely taking time to just be offline and connect with yourself, and try and listen to those voices.
Yeah.
um it's so important, I guess. Oof, to wrap it up,
Yeah.
the last question, 1-1, by the way.
Well, oh my gosh, yes.
To wrap it up, how do we connect with Mother Mary through the angels, and how do they work together? Is there something
Mm,
there? Personally, I'll just like try to, when I remember, try to connect with her first, Mother, Queen of Angels, let them come, and let them come
yeah.
down on and do this work with me, or sit in meditation with me, and just to give permission to her angels to come and do a certain thing with me. And there's that like reverence, and that
Mm-hmm.
like that's
Yeah.
how I do it, like ask her for permission to work with the angels. But is there a way to do it?
Yeah, I love that. And the answer that I get is there's no right or wrong, which,
Hmm.
and I really love that you shared that, because I feel like that is a really special way in which we can do that. The thing that I saw as you were asking that question is also how, and probably it's very similar to what you described, but kind of experiencing as this, like I saw this circle of energy and circle of light that kind of surrounds you, or each of us as we call on that, where it's almost seeing it, I saw it as the angels coming like as forming a circle around us, as we almost like holding the space to then be able to receive whatever needs to be received from the angels, from her as a collect. Like it's almost like she's standing in the front and them circling around. You know what I mean? Like creating this circle with her there, and then whether it's a connection directly with her or from the angels, but it's almost like seeing it as this circle, and she's within the circle.
Circle. I
Circle,
love
there it is again.
it. Yeah, I love it. It's overwhelming to think of all the divine beings and all the energies that live like that world behind the world that we don't
Yeah.
see, but then you start to think Mother Mary, your guardian angels, all the archangels, then seraphims or whatever is there, and then guides, and then ascended masters, and it's like, how many people can we fit in this room? It's like there's so many things going on.
Exactly.
But I love to have a better understanding of that, like circle, and that
Yeah.
sitting in circle with those energies,
Mhm.
and just let them work through us. That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And that's actually very common how I've seen that depicted in my brain is this
Yeah.
like these circles that
Like,
are of these beings around us.
isn't
So
it
yeah.
funny when you
Definitely.
go to work or go outside and you're in a restaurant, whatever it is, it's just a fun thing that I do. And I'm like, okay, everyone here has one or two or three guardian angels, and then
Yeah.
perhaps some seraphims, and then perhaps some archangels, and then perhaps
Mhm.
some masters, and then perhaps some relatives just like just hanging out.
Yeah.
And then, like, how many people would
Right.
be in this restaurant or this meeting room or whatever? So anyway, it's funny to me just to try and figure who is in the room, who's
Yeah.
actually in the room when wherever I am when there's people gathering.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's just a fun way to, yeah,
That's actually so
create
fun.
some levity. Like if you're in
Yeah.
a stressful meeting and you start to think about it, I'm like, oh, there's so much more going on here. Like,
Exactly.
this is
I'm
really not
definitely
that
going to do
important. Like,
that.
look at all
Yeah.
these people.
Yes, I'm totally gonna do that next time, like some gathering, family gathering or whatever. It's kind of like, oh, okay. There's
Yeah,
there's other beings here. It's not just us.
exactly. It's fun.
So
It's fun.
I love that. So, so good. I want to hear from our listeners who have tuned in today. And I mean, first of all, I want to hear about your experience with Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, Divine Feminine Energy. Like, what has that been like for you? Let us know in the comments. Let us know any questions, any further questions that you might have around this topic, or, I feel like we could go on. Like there's so many different threads that we could go down, so many rabbit holes that we could
Yeah.
go down. So anything that you feel called to share, let us know. And I think that's pretty much it. Like we've covered a lot today.
We
So
did. Yeah. Yeah, just let us know. We love a good rabbit hole. So just let us know.
yes.
And we'll go there and we'll have that conversation. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
But this was so
definitely.
fun.
Yeah. And we also have the Dear Angels, which is our special segment where you can submit your questions, whether it's, for you personally or whether it's just a general spiritual topic that, related to whatever theme that you want us to dive into, you can submit that. So the link for that is in the show notes. And otherwise, if you enjoyed this episode, give it a thumbs up, give it a rating, share on your social media, all that good stuff. We appreciate it all. I also just want to say that we've been getting such amazing feedback about this podcast that just like warms our hearts. And it really, is just, I guess, a reflection of what our intention was from the beginning about this podcast. And to hear feedback from you guys, I've been getting messages and things like that, people sharing how much they've been enjoying it and how just like the conversations and things like that. So we just want to say thank you because it's exactly what we intended for it to be. And we're so happy that you're receiving it. And we're just getting started. We're just getting started. So
Yeah. I feel like,
amazing.
yeah, just we keep learning, we keep getting, I guess, a little bit better as time goes by. But we're so grateful for the wonderful feedback that comes through. We want you to feel that, yeah, you're just in here chatting with us, and it's a nice conversation. We're just talking about interesting, weird things. So,
Yes.
and normalizing these conversations. So it's great to feel like we're doing that and we're connecting with some people. So yeah,
Yeah.
very grateful and happy. Send us all your questions and we'll keep chatting.
Yay, absolutely. All right, we will see
Right.
you in the next episode.